Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Figma for EDU Figma Design Basics. Happy Friday. If it's already Saturday where you're at, happy Saturday. I hope y'all are having a wonderful day. My name is Miggy. I'm also joined by Alex here. Alex, say hi in the chat. Today, we're not going to be talking about components or auto layout, but we're going to be digging into the basics of what it means to design, to make something in Figma, and to make a very simple prototype. All right, so let's go. I'm going to press Shift Space Bar on this just to put it into a little presentation mode. So what is Figma? So Figma is three products. It's FigJam, which is FigJam, which is whiteboarding, collecting your ideas, brainstorming. Figma Design, which allows you to design layouts, mockups. You can design websites, and the look and feel of those things. You can collaborate with others. So if you're thinking about an app idea and you want to visualize how that app may look, that can be done in Figma. We also have Dev Mode, which allows a developer or a software engineer to work with you in putting that idea together. So if we take a look here, you can see folks that are working together. They're jamming on their ideas in FigJam, right? They are working in dev mode, inspecting a design so they can think about how it's put together. And in Figma, they're creating the typography, the graphical layout, and putting those ideas together. Okay. So Figma is for designing apps and websites as teams. So you're going to be putting these things together. It allows you to consolidate the colors, the components, any of the reusable bits that you're putting together in an idea. And we're going to be exploring some of these concepts for you today, for those of you who are fairly new to these ideas and to these tools. So prototyping is going to be a concept we're going to talk a lot about. This little window that I have right here is actually a prototype. You can see I can interact with it. And what you can do with prototyping is you can test your ideas out. So if you are working on an app idea, if you are working on a presentation of sorts, you can make that presentation or make that app interactive to test out your ideas. You can make iterations on those prototypes to help better sell the idea that you are putting together. So I'm able to click through this. And if you're thinking what sort of careers where folks use Figma, we're thinking product designers, right? So digital product designers, folks who are making apps such as Spotify or Airbnb or Netflix. These are all products that have teams that can use Figma to work on their ideas, to test their new features, to develop that further, and to have kind of like a library of their visual assets. UX designer, UI designer, brand designer, visual designer. Many of you coming to this workshop today believe that designer was just one cap. There are many caps, many different roles that a designer can assume within a company that helps them design the experience of a product or an app, or even market that app. Also, software engineers, web developers, app developers, they're going to collaborate with designers in this space to work with one another. We have software engineers, product managers, project managers, writers, and they're going to come together to kind of produce and polish and kind of converse on these things. And in the spirit of collaboration, today's demo, I'm going to be accompanied by Alex. Alex, you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. I work on the Figma team, but I'm really just in the beginning of my Figma design journey. So I'm going to be asking lots of newbie questions and jumping in to have Miggy repeat himself and to go through the basics one more time for us. If you have questions for me that you want me to read out loud to Miggy, throw them in the chat or the Q&A feature. So I'll be your newbie buddy as we go through this today.
Thank you, Alex. So Alex is a beginner in Figma, and because we get so many requests for folks to, for us to slow down and really kind of encapsulate some of these ideas, Alex is going to be asking questions as I produce this demo. So feel free to ask questions in the chat as well. So first off, where am I right now? I am currently inside of the Figma design editor. In here, you can see the center area is a canvas. I'm able to move around the canvas. The canvas is very visual. On the left, you can see that there are layers. every object that is on the canvas. So like these shapes, the shapes are going to be the first concept that we're going to talk about today. These shapes, everything that exists on the canvas, it has a representation in this layers panel on the left. We're going to be talking about that layers panel a lot. In here too, we can add images, we can add text. So every time you add an element to the canvas, it will be placed over here. Now, to change, to edit, to modify these basic elements, you're going to have this panel over here on the right called the design panel. And every object that you click on, that you select, that you see selected here, notice you'll see this little blue outline. That means that it's currently selected. For those objects that are currently selected, you can see it selected over here on the bottom left. Let me bring this up so you can see this a little bit better. Over here on the left, you can see that this ellipse is selected. And while it's selected, you can see its properties over here on the right. So this design panel reflects the properties of those objects. So I could change its X position or its horizontal position. I could change its Y position or its vertical position. I could change its width. I could change its height. I could rotate it, which for a circle, you can't really see it rotating. Let's select that rectangle right there, that circle or that square, and I can rotate it and you could see it there. So many of the designs that you see are just a juxtaposition of text, vector imagery, or shape imagery that can be scaled, large or small, and as well as photorealistic imagery. Alex, do you have any questions before we continue?
I definitely do. So just to repeat what you said, those shapes on your canvas are layers,
Yep.
and that right-hand panel controls each of those layers. So you could change things like the orientation or the color.
Yes. So I'm
Okay,
selecting it. I'm going over to the design panel. I'm finding the property of that object that's over here on the left. And then I'm able to change that color. I could change its position by just dragging it around, or I could change its position over here on the right.
got it. Thanks, Megs.
Awesome. Now you can see that as I select this object, if I want to zoom in on anything, let's say I'm over here in my layers panel and I see this star underneath that circle, that ellipse, I can double click on it and it'll zoom right to it. I can double click on this one, it'll zoom right to that one. I can double click on the section where I just was, and you'll see that it zooms back out to that. So by double clicking on those objects, I can go to each one. Somebody asked me, how did I get a slider? When I hover over the X value, I get a little slider and that allows me to drag that left and right. So here, when I hover over the Y property, I get the little slider and I could drag it left or right. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about in Figma is shapes. Shapes in Figma are what is known as vector objects. Vector objects are created with math. So they're created using all of these points to generate that shape. That means that it is infinitely scalable. You can scale it as small as you want or as large as you want, and it'll still look nice and crisp. So when you're creating these shapes, you're actually working with math to generate them. I'm going to come up here to the top left panel. Let's zoom in my interface just a little bit. For those of you in the back, you can see it a little better. I'm going to click right here in the shapes and you can see the arrangement of shapes that I have available. So I can draw a rectangle. Alex, you could draw a rectangle too. Alex is drawing a triangle. There we go. You can select that object and you could change its color. Now, UX design and UI design relies heavily on rectangles. We often joke in the profession that we just draw rectangles because a rectangle is a unit for how a lot of content gets displayed, aligned, and placed. So it's important to begin to think about rectangles as you're thinking through your design and how you arrange objects in that space. So Alex is going to draw a rectangle. A few things about drawing shapes. There are some shortcuts that are helpful when you draw a shape. So when I click and draw this, you can see that it's currently freeform. However, if I want to maintain a width and height of this object so it maintains itself as a rectangle, square, I can hold the shift key and you'll see when I hold the shift key, it gets larger and smaller. So Alex is doing the same thing with that rectangle. And when you hold the shift key, it goes large and small. Now, suffice to say that shapes are pretty awesome in Figma and they have some unique properties. When I click on a star, I'm going to click and drag right here. And you see this little triangle that I have here available. These little dots in Figma signify that this object has some secrets. So if I'm making, let's say I'm making a little sign here that I need a star, and I want to make like, like 99% off or something, I can change the properties of this star. I could change the amount of points, and I can drag it right there. And if I want to change this color, I can choose that yellow color, and I can make a little star. So these shapes and graphics are pretty easy to work with. And I'm going to show you one more. The ellipse tool, which is a circle tool, has this arc, which allows me to make little pie charts. So let's say if I was a designer that is creating an activity tracking app, and I want a little circle that kind of grows and shows my progress, you see here this option, I can drag this out, and I can easily begin to visualize what that might look like as UI, as a user interface. So here you can see I can change that color, and you can see I can generate and modify this object. And Alex is doing it right there too, right along with me. There we go. So I can change the ratio, and I can rotate these. So this is a bit of an innovation with Figma. So you can try out different shapes and take a look and see what you can create. My favorite is playing around with the polygon tool, and I could draw out as many sides as necessary, and I can keep on going till it just about creates a perfect circle. So there we go, the polygon tool. If I need a hexagon or a seven-sided one, and that's called a heptagon, H-E-P-T, heptagon. There we go, I've just created that. Okay, cool. So play with shapes, get comfortable with that. Next up, we're going to talk about typography. So not only having a shape, I'm going to bring this shape over here, but let's say I want to begin to add like text. I'm going to create a graphic. I'm going to say 99 cents. Text is going to be begin by pressing the T key or clicking on the text tool. I'm going to click right on the canvas. I'm going to say hello world, and you'll see that it's so small because I'm inputting 12-point type here. So once again, the text field, if I want to, I could just double click on that text, right? Let's say I'm zoomed all the way out. I could double click on that text and I go right to it. And so the same as the shapes, when I select this object, you see it's on the canvas. I could see it represented there in my layers. This text tool, I can begin to change its properties. So if I want to change the font size, I can click right here, and you'll see kind of like a scale of numbers. Let's make this text just a little bit bigger. I'm going to set it to about 40. Just kind of zoom out there. There we go. Zoom out about 40. We could change the weight of it. So any given font has a number of different weights associated with it. Some fonts might only be regular and bold. Some fonts might have a whole host of different weights associated with it. One thing I could do is I can click on this drop down here, and I can sort through different popular fonts. I could sort through fonts that are available through Google Fonts, and I can also pick through variable fonts. Variable fonts are nice in that they are very flexible and give you a lot of options. So you can make, let's work here with Hepta Slab, where I can select this text, and you can see I can have a hairline version of that text as it was designed, and then go all the way down to a black version. So this gives me a lot of variability when I'm working with my type to establish a good composition or hierarchy. Alex, questions?
Okay, so somebody in the chat just asked, how do you change the default font and have it stay like that throughout designing?
So as you begin changing your fonts, like the most recent one that you've just worked on, when you press the T key and draw it out, it will remember the most recent one that you worked on. Now,
Okay.
one thing that you can do is you can make a style that you can use later. So let's say I'm working with this text, right? So Hepta Black 40 size right here. This is the line height. The line height controls how tall the next line is going to be down. So if I change this value right now, so I'm going to say hello world, I'm going to call this second line, right? the tighter this is, let's say if I make this value smaller than the font size, so if I go 30 for the line height, right, you're going to see that those two lines are going to collide because there's not enough room, right? So the line height for that text is going to be the amount of space above and below, including the font size itself. So it needs to be at least the font size or higher. This can be expressed in a number of different values. So I can type in a point value that's going to match the font, or I can type in a percentage value that could be the font size or larger. So I can say 100%, and no matter the font size that I have, I can do 25. It'll always keep a proportional line height. Or what I can do is I could say 120%. So it'll give me a little bit more leeway as I'm working. So no matter what font size I use, right, this will be the same. And you might ask, well, then why doesn't it always work with percentages? And that's because traditional type layout, especially with print, you had to actually think about what those point size values were and ascribe them in a way that was meaningful. In the digital world, they make sense with percentages, but still there's finer tuned control that you might want to have as a designer. All
Okay,
right,
Miggy, one more question in this section. So
let's go
I
for it.
wrote out my text, I put it in my box, but now when I expand, oh, okay. So somebody in the chat said to press the K key and that the text would expand as I was expanding the shape.
Right. And that's a concept that we're going to talk about a little bit later, where we're talking about resizing versus scaling. Right. So in Figma,
Amazing.
there's a different concept. When you resize something, here I'm resizing the text box. So I need to think about I'm changing the width and the height of that text box, but I'm not actually scaling it. Scaling happens and is like a different function in Figma. So if I come up here, you'll notice in the top left under the move tool is the scale tool. The shortcut key for that is K, and you'll see the interface for this come up over here on the right, and that'll allow you to scale it by either a multiplier value or with a width and height value. Now, that's essentially the same thing as going in and adjusting your type size, right? So a designer who's like working, they need to think about, okay, I need to be precise about my type size. And that type size, I'm going to input that value. I want to be intentional about it. But sometimes you're working fast and you're just working very, very quickly, and you press the K key and you scale it up. Now, the problem with that is when you actually go in and you look at your type size, it might be some random number. Right now, my type size is 207.21. Now, when you're working on a design, you actually want to be consistent in your type size. You want to be intentional about your type size. And that's why just scaling it in that way can be a bit more chaotic. It's good when you're just testing things out, but once it comes to your real design, you want to be a little bit more intentional. So I might scale it up, but then decide that I might go down to 200 as my type size.
Mm,
So then that way
okay.
I can be more consistent with it. Yes.
I've seen you do that while you're designing. That's really cool.
Brilliant. Thanks. And I'll show you one more fun thing with the variable type. I can click on this text and I can go here and you'll see this option called variable font axes. And this is a fun thing with type that gives you a much better sense of how the designer who designed the type is thinking about that weight. So going from that hairline font all the way to its thickest value. So when you're working in the real world, when you're thinking about a design, usually you might want to pair the same font, but then just with a different weight. So then this way you have that kind of visual consistency. So you might have a headline that uses a very heavy weighted version of the font, and then have
Mm.
paragraph text that uses a lighter weight of that font.
Okay, so it's almost like you have more control than you would if you were just bold versus unbold.
Yes. And
Cool.
and I mean, there's a whole thing that we could talk about that where some applications make a fake bold if there isn't a real bold that was designed by the person who made the type. So
Okay.
here we can be confident that we're using the proper bold that was designed and intentional by the typographer who made the type.
That's awesome. Okay, I think we're good on typography.
Brilliant. Next up, we're going to talk about vector graphics. We kind of talked about this a bit with shapes. So shapes in Figma are vector graphics. When you generate a shape using the shape tool, however, it's kind of like this live object. You can't actually change its individual points. However, if I double click into it, I can see these points and then I can begin to control them on my own. Right. So once again, we were talking about vector graphics as being these math-based graphics. Now, vector graphics are important for pretty much everything now. Like if you think of a logo, if you think of any sort of visual representation on the web, for accessibility's sake, sometimes you want to scale it up and scale it down. So graphics that are created. So I'll show you really quickly. That's going to be using the pen tool in Figma. The pen tool is going to be the P key. I'm going to click up here, and that allows you to draw those points out. And you are drawing essentially a shape. And right now, this is an open kind of shape. And what I want to do is I want to close it out. So I have the starting point. I begin to map this out, and then it closes out. Now, you'll notice that as I've drawn this all out, over here to the right, there's some properties here. This has generated a stroke. So those are the lines, the outlines around the object. So with this still selected, I can adjust that stroke value. And you'll notice that as I'm making these points, I'm currently in a vector editing mode. So if I look up here to my tools, the tools are slightly different. It lets me know that I have this thing called the bend tool, and that's going to allow me to kind of like bend and curve, these points so I can make them a bit more organic. So the pen tool drawing out right is going to be, kind of point to point with these edges, but the bend tool is going to give me the ability to make this a bit more organic. Now, when you're working with these points, you can also click on them again to like create those nice even edges. So you can click on them again to release them and to be more organic. Okay. And like I mentioned, this is a stroke, but then there can also be a fill color. So when I click on the fill, I can generate the color that goes inside of that stroke. And so
This is
this
so
is,
cool. I really loved that bend feature. I didn't even think of doing that.
yes, love that. One of my favorite activities is just to go in and, oops, sorry, there you go. One of my favorite activities is to go in and create objects that make use of a new feature in Figma. Well, a feature that Figma kind of pioneered called vector networks. I'm going to show you what that means. So in traditional drawing applications, by the way, all of these graphics here are all generated using vector graphics. So if I click in, you can see I can change. Oh, there's an extra fill layer on there. I can change, its position and how it's created. So vector networks is a concept that was pioneered in Figma that allows you to have multiple lines come from the same node point. So if I was to draw an arrow, and this is one of the first things that I did in Figma, so I'm going to click point, hold down the shift key, right? Shift key is going to keep it straight. Shift key will keep it a nice even angle. So click, hold a straight line, click, and I'm going to hold the shift key. It's going to create a nice 45-degree angle. And then I want to lose the association of this line. I'm press escape. And I'm going to click on this point again, hold down the shift key, and you'll see it align. What's really cool is that it's going to align and it's going to snap. So the fact that this point has two other line segments coming out of it is relatively new in vector graphics. It used to be that in order for me to create that, it would be much more difficult. But in Figma, I can use the pen tool to create another line from that node. And you can see that it creates the relationship of those points.
Okay, one more time for the newbies. I have my pen tool ready. I'm pressing shift, so I have my straight line. And then what am I doing from there?
Click, and then hold
Oh
this
boy.
shift key.
Okay.
All right, hold this shift key and then click at a 45-degree angle.
Oh boy. I'm not sure what I did there. Okay,
Here.
click.
Follow along. I'm
Y'all
gonna
are
press the
getting like
P
a real
key.
newbie minute right now. Press
It's
the P key.
okay.
Okay.
This is helpful. This is helpful. All
Oh, I
right.
got it.
So you got the line. Cool. So you got the first line, right? And then I'm gonna hold the shift key and I'm gonna draw it out over this way.
So cool.
I probably can't see exactly what you're seeing because you're still in the editing mode. And if you
Okay.
still have it
I
sticking,
have
so if you look at my screen where it's still sticking, I could press escape and then I can click on this point again. It'll snap and I can hold the shift key and it'll create another point right there. There you go.
very,
So yes.
very cool.
So make the other point, make the other line, make the other line, make the full
Okay.
arrow.
This is like really putting myself out there, but I got this. I got this. Okay.
Appreciate you.
Made the other line.
Yep.
And then I'm going to put it. Oh boy, what did I do? Hold on. Okay. I'm still struggling. I'm going to get through this
Okay.
though, Miggy.
All
Don't let
right.
me stop you.
So that's actually a good point, is that like when you create that, this object, right? Notice I'm no longer in vector editing mode. I'm outside of it. To get back inside, I just need to double click and then I'm back in here. So let's say you're at this point and you want to generate another line. Press the P key. You can click on that point, hold the shift key, and then you can create that line. And then I'm going to press escape. And I can press escape again, and then I'm outside of that graphic entirely.
Very cool.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Did you get it? Did you get it?
Not quite. Not quite. I'm getting there though.
All right, you're getting there. You're getting there. Let's see. I'm going to duplicate yours and I'll show everybody where you're at and how to get, and how to get from that point. So here, I'm at your arrow. I double click. I see that point. I press the pen tool. I click on it. I hold the shift key to drag it out. And you'll see that it snaps when it hits a nice even point. I click that point there. If the line is still sticking, I press the escape key and I can press the escape key once more and I exit out of that graphic.
That's so cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So vector graphics are going to be awesome in Figma. There's many different ways for you to work with them. I'll show an example that we showed in our workshop last week where you can take one graphic, right? I have an ellipse, right? So I click on the ellipse tool. I hold the shift key. I draw the ellipse. I'm going to make a copy of this ellipse. So I'm going to press Command D or Control D. It's going to make a duplicate. You'll see that there's a duplicate right here over the other one. So there we go. Come on, Alex, let's do this together. All right, so you got your first one. All right, you got your second one. Move it down just a little bit. Okay, get a little bit of overlap, a little bit more overlap. Now you're going to select them both. And we're going to come up here and we're going to choose intersect selection. Yes. And what we're doing is we're going to make an eyeball icon. There we go.
Oh my gosh.
You did it. All right, so next, let's take another circle. We're going to put it in the middle here. And here, for this circle, we want to do something different. I'm going to change the color so we can see it a little bit better. There we go. And so we're going to put it right in the center. You'll see it snap when it's in the center.
Okay.
Okay.
There we
and
go.
Now we're going to swap the fill and the stroke, right? So we're going to press Shift X. And I know a lot of people really enjoyed this last week. I'm going to press Shift X. And that's going to swap the fill and the stroke. So what I had was the fill. Oh no, we just want it on the little.
Oh, we just want it on the pupil. Yep. Okay.
On the pupil. So Shift X, and then we're going to increase the stroke on that.
Okay.
But you don't want to fill, so remove the fill.
Okay. Removing the fill. How do I do that?
So select the shape and then come over here and click the little minus next to the fill.
Gotcha. Okay.
You remove the clicking stroke.
What did I do?
you removed the stroke. So you want to remove the fill, not the stroke. You do want a stroke.
Gotcha.
You want the stroke to be bigger. Yeah.
Okay, figured it out. And then I'm changing the color of the fill, right?
Are you good? Yes. But you you want it to be a stroke. So press Shift X.
Okay, Shift X. Okay.
There you go. Now make your stroke thicker.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So now let's select both of those objects.
Okay.
And we're going to come up here, and instead of intersect, we're going to subtract the selection.
I think I did it.
And
Did
when
I
we
do it?
subtract that selection, it's going to look like this. So I could change my fill color to black, and we made ourselves a little eye icon, an icon.
Wait, Miggy, I've seen you do this before and I never understood how you were doing it. This is so cool.
Awesome. And now if you look over in the layers panel, you can actually see the construction of it. So
Okay.
even the foundational ellipses that are there, they're still there, right? So if I look in the layers panel, I could still make a movement or an adjustment on that shape because it
Okay.
retains them all. So both the intersect and the subtract, they're still always being applied to make this new icon. So when I collapse that, we have this nice little shape, and then I can make copies of these.
This is getting
And
creepy. I like it.
I can make them into little colors. I could change those colors. So they then
That
become our
is
new
so
little
cool.
object. So I saw somebody in the back, they said, I see what you did there. We got folks in folks in the audience got jokes. I appreciate y'all. All right. So someone said that they wanted to see one more time how we did the background. So I'll show you that one more time, and then we'll move on to the next concept. So I draw out an ellipse, right? So we draw out this circle, and you'll notice underneath, it tells me how big it is, right? If those numbers are in the thousands, folks, you might be zoomed out way too much. So we have a circle. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to press Command D. So right now there's two ellipses. There's one stacked on top of the other, and we could see that here. So when I move this one down, right, let's darken these up. I'm going to make them both black so you can see that. So now when I move this one down, we're actually thinking about that intersection between them. So when I select them both, you can kind of see what's being generated. So I can move this up or down. And when I select them and I come up here, these are Boolean operations. So union will merge them together. Subtract will cut one out from the other. That's a subtract. It makes like a half moon. Union will put them together. So it makes it like a peanut. So here, if I choose intersect, it's going to find the space in between them. It's like a Venn diagram that puts them into the middle, and that's how you get that. And then to get that pupil, I'm going to draw another circle. I'm going to move it here. That circle right now has a fill and it doesn't have a stroke. So to swap those, I press Shift X. And what that did was it moved the fill that I had down into the stroke panel. And I'm going to make that stroke panel, I'm going to give it some weight, right? I'm going to adjust those properties. I'm going to make this green just so you can see how it's going to cut away from that existing shape. So when I select them too, I'm going to choose subtract, and there we go. I have my little icon, and there we go. Goes in our little family of them up here.
It was a battle, but we got through it. That was
It was a
awesome, Miggy.
battle.
I
We
don't
got
think
through
we
it.
have many questions, so let's jump into colors and fills.
Okay, cool. So we kind of already talked about colors and fills. And once again, there's a method to the madness. We're talking about shapes, imagery, vectors, colors and images, right? We're creating all of the pieces that are necessary to put into a design. At the end of this activity, we're going to make a little simple prototype. So we're working our way through. So next up, colors and fills. So any shape that you have, so if I generate a rectangle, you'll see that I have a fill. I can duplicate that and I can change its color fill. There are different types of fills. There are image fills. So if I come over here and I change this fill, and you'll see it right here when I click on the fill option, brings up this menu. I can choose a color using the color picker. The color picker is based off of the hue, right? So it looks for the hue, which color is it, a blue? Then I can pick a darker blue or a lighter blue. But let's say I want to pick an image. I can click right up here and choose image. And what it does is it creates this little checkerboard pattern. Look at Alex is already ahead of me
I
up here,
added a
folks.
picture of my dog.
You added a picture of your dog, and you can change that object to have the image pop up. So I can choose an image and I can pull it up from my file browser and it'll populate it. So I have a photo of a butterfly here. So I can even change how the image maps to the shape, and it could be any shape. I can pick a star, and I can pick, like a little starburst star, and I can come to the fill. I can click on image. I can choose an image, and it can be a flamingo, right? And there's my flamingo star. If I want to as well, I can select that object. I can click just to the left of the fill. You'll see here, I click just to the left of the fill and I can copy and I can paste that to other places. And I can just paste that fill. So let me undo. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo, but you can copy a fill by clicking to the left of it and pasting it. So someone says how to get very
What?
good pictures quality. You can have images up to, I think, like 8,000 pixels wide by 8,000 pixels tall. What was the
Wait, can
question?
you show me what you just did where you replicated, you moved the butterfly into the other container as well?
Oh, yeah. All right. So see here, I've selected
Yep.
the butterfly frame. I'm
Mm-hmm.
coming over here to my fill and I click just to the left. And notice I've highlighted that layer, right?
Okay.
So
Yep.
here's the whole kind of like layer. And
Okay.
anywhere that isn't like, clickable to do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just left of it, you'll see that whole layer light up. And then you can press
Mm-hmm.
Command C to copy.
Okay.
And now it's copied. And then you can select another shape to paste it into. And it pastes. You did it. Look at that.
I'm gonna be putting my dog everywhere.
You can put your dog everywhere.
Okay, this is awesome. We just got a comment from M in the chat. This is so much easier than I thought it was. M, I'm glad that you are getting it here because I am sweating to
Yes.
make it happen. This is awesome, Migs.
This is so great. And so if let's say you want to place 3 images at the same time, you can come up here, go file, place image or video. This shortcut key I've actually memorized. So it's Shift Command K. I press it and then I can select multiple objects from my file picker. So I can select 1, 2, 3. And then you get this nifty interface where you see the image and you see that number 3. Your icon for your cursor changes to like a little cross, and I can just click on the shapes that I want to target and fill them up. I'll
That's
show you that one
so
more time.
cool. So if I
So
wanted to
here,
recreate something like Pinterest, for example, where I'm getting a bunch of images, you could do that with that tool. That's really cool.
absolutely, I could draw a rectangle. I can duplicate 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have these 4. I can pull up the place image shortcut, or let's do it on canvas so everyone can see. File, place image video. It's going to ask me my file browser. I know that y'all can't see this, but then I can now select 1, 2, 3, 4. And there we go. I have a nice little visual. And let's say I want to frame these, right? These are photos and I want to frame them. Frames in Figma are containers. So a container is going to keep all of your objects together. We use frames to represent like an iPhone or a tablet or a website frame. So then this way it groups and holds together all of your designs. So if you imagine this as being a phone frame, a tablet frame, or a laptop frame, frames are going to be up here in the top left. It's going to be the F key. And I can actually draw a frame around those images. And the frame, now when I select the frame, and to select the frame, I can click on its name and I can move that around. You see that it's all kept together.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking
Maybe
about
can I
making,
confess? Can I
yes,
do a newbie confession? So when I
yeah,
first got into Figma, the frame action and the rectangle were exactly the same to me, and I could not
really,
figure out how they were different. So
no
rectangles
way.
are essentially shapes and
Yes,
layers on your canvas, but then
yes,
frames are like a container that you can put all of those things in. But frames are also layers.
yes.
Whew,
So I'll take a
okay.
look at this here. I just took a screenshot. And so you can see that this frame, I should give this frame a better name. Let's call this frame, gallery, right? And so the gallery has my different photos. So I'll have, like photo 1, photo 2, photo 3, and photo 4. And by the way, renaming your layers helps other people understand the work that you did. And can understand your organization. It helps you understand the organization. So if I was to double click on that gallery, I could see the photos inside. They're nested, just like this bird makes a nest. They're nested inside of that frame. So when I move that frame around, they go along with it. So if something is outside of the frame, so if I draw this rectangle, it's outside of the frame. It looks like it might be in it, but it's outside. So when I move the frame, it's individual. So someone says, how do I scale a photo to the container? You can kind of use the resizing. And if the photo is set to a fill kind of fill type, it will expand and fill to that size. And look, Alex made a frame
I
too.
made my own frame.
Amazing. So in Figma, when you press the F key and you draw a frame, the properties for the frame is going to be over here on the right. When you click on the frame name, you get a bunch of presets. The default presets are like mobile phones, but as you make your way down, you can see a presentation slide that's 16 by 9. So that would be like a Google presentation slide. We have Apple Watch. We have an A4 like print size, a letter, like a common like letter paper size. We have Twitter post, we have Twitter header. So
Miggy,
all of these
I'm
different
sorry to
options you
interrupt
have
you.
here. Yeah,
Can you do that one more time really slowly?
sure.
So I
So,
did control or shift F.
oh, no, just F. F brings up the
F.
frame tool.
Okay.
Yeah,
F,
yeah.
I made my frame. And then how do I get to those presets?
Select the frame and then go over to the design panel and
Okay.
click on like frame. There's a
Where
little
it
drop
says
down that'll pop
frame.
up
Okay.
and you'll see all of those preset sizes.
That's really cool. And Miggy, why is that so helpful? Like, what would I be using that for if I'm designing for a specific device?
So if you're designing for a specific device,
Okay.
let's say too, if you're making a Twitter post, right? You want the exact Twitter post dimensions when you click on frame, and you can
Mm.
just type it in. So I can click on that. I could type in TWI, and you'll see it's going to go down right to that.
Oh,
So I could actually type in PH. So I can click on the frame and say like iPhone, and it's going to zoom right to the iPhone one.
that's really cool. Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to do that one more time with you.
No, that was great. Absolutely. So we understand the concept of frames. Um, and that's going to kind of put that stuff out. And I see somebody's mentioning auto layout. Today, we're kind of not talking about auto layout or components. We're just kind of keeping it, real with the absolute basics. So right now we've been working in pages. So you see the first page is kind of like where we were introed. The second page is where we did these little activities and we're kind of navigating around. This third page is where we're going to move to next, where we're just going to talk about just some things in Figma for y'all to consider to kind of think about how you're arranging the objects, the shape, the text, the graphics that you're creating inside of a frame and how you're moving them around. So unfortunately, you can't add a 4x6 postcard frame as a preset, but you can draw one out and then you can duplicate it. So if I press F and I draw a frame, I'll show you how to do a 4x6. I've been doing a lot of print stuff lately myself in Figma. So you want to multiply everything. So if you're in the US, we're using inches. So I multiply 4 by 72, and that equates to 4 inches, and 6 by 72. And you'll actually be pretty surprised to see how small 4 inches by 6 inches is in Figma. But this is a 4 by 6. Oop, let me make my text a lot smaller. Let's say 12 point type. There we go. So you'll notice ergonomics is an important thing. So this is a 12 4x6. So if I use 12 point type, the relative measure is going to match up the same way as if you were in a desktop publishing program. So this is 288 by 432, and that's 4 multiply, little asterisk, 72, and the height is 6 multiply 72. And that creates a 4-inch by 6-inch document right there. Right. And so if I use 12 point type, that 12 point type, 72 is there's 72 points in an inch. That's where it comes from. So that point value for every inch. So 4 inches is 4 times 72. And Abdul saying it's the DPI. Technically, because this is vector, it's not the necessarily the dots per inch, but it's like the points per inch. So that's going to be the ideal way to work. So folks with centimeters and meters work in a different value. We could dig into this into a separate workshop. I could actually talk at length about that for about an hour. But this is kind of like the basic way that we are going to work with it, if that's how you're
Awesome.
thinking about it for print. So let's get back into arranging. I don't want to get too much into a tangent, but arranging objects. So I press a frame, I draw a frame, And once again, getting a sense of your frame size always helps. So from now on, I'm going to use an iPad Pro 12.9, right? So here's an iPad Pro frame, and I'm going to draw some objects inside of it. So let's just say I'm going to draw on some rectangles. So I have one, let's say two, three, four, five, six. And what I'm doing is I'm holding down the Option key. If you're on Windows, it's the Alt key, and I'm making duplicates. I'll show you that one more time. So I draw a rectangle, I hold down the Option key, and I drag, 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 drag. So I want to think about arranging these objects inside of this frame. If you look over here to the bottom right, once they're selected, you'll see this little shape that shows up like a saltine. Do you see that, Alex? When I
Yep, I
click
can
on
see
it,
it.
it arranges all of those objects into a nice kind of grid, right? And I'll do that one more time. I hit undo. So let's draw our shapes. One, and hold down the Option key, drag two, three, four, five, six. Let's do seven. And it could be as haphazard as you want, Alex. So I'm going to
Okay,
select them all,
haphazard. Okay.
click, drag.
Okay.
So if you're on Windows, it's going to be the Alt key. So on Mac, the Option key is between Command and Control, and on Windows, it would be the Alt key. And then here we're going to click, and you'll see them arranged, and you'll see these little spacers pull up that allows you to arrange
Oh, you
them.
can kind of change the padding and the space between them.
Yep. And so you can arrange them, you can
Cool.
move them up and down. And if you had one that was a different color, right, you can actually move it in that space. So when they're arranged and you see those little dots, you can actually move a slightly different one around. So when it's selected, you'll see the little dots,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can move it.
Oh, very cool.
And for more control, hold down the Command key. If you're on Windows, it's the Control key, and you could just move that specific one.
That
So
is a
if you're
really cool trick.
so if you're working on a design and you want to move this there to there, right? Before you're like, okay, I got to move this here and I got to move this one up, and you might move things out of alignment. Here with more confidence and control, you can just drag and move that.
This is so cool. Maggie, I just looked up at the clock and it looks like we only have about 10 more minutes to go. So
All right.
maybe we go through the next few pretty quickly so we can jump into our prototyping activity.
I think what we can do is we can review the next few in the prototyping activity. How about that?
Okay, let's do it. I'm a
All right.
little scared, but
So
we're going to do it.
we got this. So the last thing I'm going to show you here is that notice inside of the frame. Let's say we had all of these objects, right? I'm going to add another one, right? And I want to align them to the center of this frame. How would you do that, Alex?
I would guess. So I would select all of them and then I would just move them around and guess.
You can actually you can do that. But let's say if one of them was like a little bit off to the right,
Okay, that makes it trickier.
right? It's a little bit trickier. So let's say you want to censor this, right?
Okay.
I'm going to select them all.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm gonna show you, like, let's say if I try to censor it, these are the alignment tools, right? It's gonna just censor them all. But let's say I
Yeah.
want to censor them as a group,
Okay.
right? I'm gonna hold down the shift key while I hover over them. It's a little hidden thing. But you'll see
Okay.
that when I hold the shift key, I can click and I can arrange,
Oh,
and it'll censor them perfectly.
that's really, really cool. So
So I
to
can
do
scale
that
that
again,
down.
so when you don't press the shift key, this is what happened to me. And then
Yep.
if you do press the shift key, it does it properly. That's
It does
really
it
cool.
properly, and you can do it vertically. So I'm going to do a quick rundown of everything I just did. R key, I draw out a shape, hold down the Option or the Alt key. I can drag a lot of them, right? And for funsies, let's make those into images. So I'm going to place those images: one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, right? And I can arrange them by clicking on this little arrangement. It looks like a saltine, looks like a cracker, the arrangement cracker. I can change the spacing between them now. And now if I want to censor this into that frame, I can hold the shift key up here in the top right and arrange them to the center.
Meg, this almost reminds me of when you're online shopping and you see images of all the different products and you're putting them in your cart. So I can totally see how these designers are using this already.
Absolutely. All right, cool. I know somebody said multiple image selection. Go right here, file, place image video. And that shortcut key is the shortcut that I was using. And then if I hold down the shift key when selecting images, it'll let me choose multiple images. Okay, so we kind of already talked about resizing and scaling. So scaling, you have a couple objects and you don't want to just kind of like resize like the text. You don't want to resize the bounding box of the text. So with the frame, if I have objects inside of the frame, when I resize the frame, I'm just resizing the frame itself. I'm just creating more space in the frame. But if I want to scale the frame, I'm going to come up here and choose a scale tool or press the K key, and then I can scale it up. So scaling and resizing are two different concepts. Resizing will just make the frame bigger, and scaling will actually scale up or down the frame along with its contents.
Cool.
All right, cool. So quickly, we're going to talk about grids and we're going to hop over to the next thing. So grids are a way that you can kind of see an underlying structure for you to arrange your objects. So that way it can be consistent across frames. So when you're designing an app, or if you're designing an interaction, you want objects to land on the same space over and over again. You want your type to be consistent in where it lands. You want your imagery and your graphics to be consistent. So creating a grid will help you do that. I'm going to walk through the example that we're going to make together. So here we go. Here's my prototyping activity. This is also going to be the introduction to prototyping. So in Figma, you can make a layout. You can add text, imagery, shapes, and containers for those, right? But then those containers allow you to make them interactive. So let's imagine here, I'm going to go into my prototyping mode. So Shift E will take you away from the design panel into the prototyping panel. And I'm just going to click play so you can see the example that we have where we're navigating from one slide to the next. So here's the dog, here's the bird, here's the butterfly, here's the squirrel. So this way
So
you can
Maggie, you're
begin.
telling me we're going to do this right now.
We're going to do this right now in like the
Okay.
next amount of time. We can do
Geez.
this. We got
Okay.
this.
I got this.
All right. So I already have a little start here. So Alex, if you want to start down here, we can do this together.
Yep.
I'm going to put this as Alex. So this is you in this space. And here's Miggy. Okay.
Okay. And
So
should I be starting in design or should I be in prototyping mode?
start in design mode.
Okay.
Okay. So here we go. So we're starting off in design mode. I've already created a frame for you. This
Perfect.
frame is the iPad Pro 12.9-inch frame. The
Okay.
dimensions of it are 1024 by 1366. So
Okay.
right now it's in a portrait mode. It's vertical. So we wanted
Okay.
instead have it be in landscape mode. So select the frame and come over to the right and choose landscape mode. And here we go. We've now
Oh,
made
okay.
a
So
landscape.
for my other newbies, we're in the right panel. You see where it says frame in bold, then you see a vertical image and a landscape image. Click the landscape image.
Click the landscape image. Okay, so now we have our frame. This frame is a tablet. Next, what we're
Okay.
going to do is we're going to create the underlying grid, and we're going to use that grid to align our objects. I'm going to
Okay.
select this frame, and you'll see this option in the design panel while you have the frame selected. It's called
Okay.
Layout Grid, and click
Okay.
on that plus icon. That plus
Okay.
icon is going to add a grid to your frame. It's going to say grid 8 pixels, and we can change the value of the underlying grid here by clicking on it.
Okay.
So I currently have that open, and I'm going to change this grid size because 8 is maybe a little bit too small for us at this scale. So we're going to
Okay.
change that value to 72. And if you're
72.
wondering
Okay.
how I got that value, I just worked in intervals of 8. So if I press shift down, right, I have my nudge settings set to 8. So I can go 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72. Yours nudge settings might actually be set in tens,
Okay.
right? So
Let me
if
see.
you want to change your nudge settings, I'll show you how. You want me to change your nudge settings?
I think I'm good, honestly.
Okay, just set it to 72. That's all you really need to know.
Okay.
All right. And someone asked if they can be percentage based. There's a lot of flexibility here. You could set columns, you could set rows, you could set them to stretch, and you can kind of adjust those values. So if you have like 5 and it's set to stretch, that puts it into that base. But for now, we're going to keep it simple for this example. So we're going to keep this basic grid and we're going to use 72. Okay.
Cool.
All right. So now we have our grid. We're going to draw a rectangle that's going to serve as a placeholder for our image. I'm going to press the
Okay,
R
so
key to
I'm
draw a rectangle.
okay, and that's making a shape.
Yep. And
Okay.
we're going to click right here about 72 over and 72 down. So one block over and down.
All right.
And so you'll feel it, you'll kind of see it snap. What I like to do, this is the way that I draw it. I press R, I draw a rectangle, I move it to exactly where I want it to be, and you'll see it snap in that little area. So you see
Yep.
one, and then I drag the bottom right to be over here. So this rectangle should be 1224 by 648. Right. And this is like, this is the beginning of that design mentality where we're thinking about how large and where objects are placed within the frame.
Cool. I'm with you.
Cool. So next we got our placeholder. So actually let's make this a proper image placeholder. I'm going to select that shape. We're going to go over to the fill in the
Okay.
design panel, and we're going to choose the little image icon.
Okay.
And you'll see it'll create this little checker pattern. And that checker pattern just kind of lets us know that it's a placeholder. And so that way, when we make
Okay.
multiple frames, it's going to be easy for us to place an image into each of those frames.
Okay.
Okay. Because when you're working with multiple people, sometimes you just need to say, hey, this is where an image will be. All right. Next, I'm going to press the T key for the type tool. And I'm going to type in title. And I want this to actually be a little bit smaller. Your type might be different based off of how you've been working, but you've already done a great job. I'm going to pick type that is, it's going to be a little bit bigger. We're going to set it to 120, and we're going to set our line height to 100%.
Okay, I
So
got so my font size I got. Can you do the line height one more time?
sure, the line height is going to be underneath where the weight of it is. So if you look
Okay.
where you see bold or medium,
Mm-hmm.
underneath is going to be the line height, and you can just type in
Okay.
100%.
Cool.
Cool. So, and then here you could see we have this space for our type. What we want to do here actually to make this nice and flexible, I'm going to come over here to the type panel. We're going to choose auto height. We're going to click on auto height over here.
Okay.
So when I hover
Got
over it,
it.
it should say auto height. And that just
Yep.
means that text box will grow as our text grows. And we're going to move
Okay.
that text field just over here.
Okay.
So now when we type in text, you'll just see it like grow from that point forward.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm just going to type in animal as our placeholder. Let's see how you doing. Ooh, yes, Alex, you're doing great. So
I'm
the
really
one
proud of
thing,
myself right now.
this is great. This is great. Folks, this is not rehearsed at all. Okay, so Alex, put the baseline of your text just on one of those lines, just so we can like see
Oh,
where
okay. I
that
see what you
type
mean.
is actually like located. So we're going to use that baseline.
Okay.
Beauteous. Awesome. Love to see it. All right, cool. Next up, we're just going to make our buttons. So we're going to make the easiest buttons. We're going to
Okay.
click on the shape tools and we're going to create a polygon. Alex, you got some
Okay.
fans in the house. They're cheering you
I
on.
know that's because they're my newbie buddies.
Yes.
We're in this together.
All right. So here I'm going to draw a triangle.
Okay.
And we're just going to keep it simple. We're here to learn how to get the prototyping to work. So we don't want it to be perfect, but we're just going to
I
draw
also
it a
want to voice
simple.
over, Miggy, as I'm making my triangle, I'm also holding the shift key because you taught me
Yes.
that so that it will stay a really neat triangle instead of getting wonky.
Yeah, you don't want a wonky triangle. You don't want that. You don't want this. You don't want that. You want
So
when
use
you
the
press the
shift
shift
key when
key,
you're drawing.
yeah, it'll keep it nice and even. If you want to follow
Perfect.
exactly what I'm doing, mine's 144 by 144. And
Cool.
here I'm gonna rotate it. I guarantee you we will finish by 10 after, by 10 pass. We'll be good. We're doing well. We got this. All
I'm not
right.
giving up on my prototype now.
I'm not giving up on you either. We got this. The
Okay.
next part's gonna be easy. Okay, cool. There it is. So we got a right one, and then now we're gonna duplicate this. We're gonna use the option key or the alt key if you're on
Okay.
Windows.
Okay.
Option, click, and drag one over to the left. There you go.
Whoa.
Oh no, just the arrow, just the arrow. That's all we wanted. We didn't want the whole thing. We're gonna do that.
Okay.
That you got an easier way of doing that. Yeah.
Frame
Yes.
blast.
Yes.
Okay,
Move
got
that
it.
over. And now we're going to flip it. We're gonna flip it by pressing Shift H. It'll just flip it right over.
Awesome.
And we're gonna put them next to each other. There we go. Cool. And then just snap it right against that grid. Like just move it boop right there. A little bit more to the
Got
left.
it.
More to the
More to
left.
the left.
Like
That one?
get that square to match up with your grid square. Like
Yeah.
right there. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Perfect. Okay. Cool. So now we are so close. So somebody was asking the command for flip. Shift H will flip it horizontally. Shift V will flip it vertically. Okay. So now we have our screen, and we're gonna duplicate the screen 4 times. So press Command D will duplicate the frame, and it'll put the copy immediately to its right. So let's watch you do it. There you go. You got it. Cool. So Command D, Command
Yep.
D, and Command D. Now we have 4 frames.
Okay.
So what we're going to do, what the prototype is going to do, what the interaction is going to do is we're going to make these buttons navigate to the next one and to the previous ones.
Okay.
Okay. So one more little bit of cleanup. Let's hide the grid. We don't need the grid anymore. Let's press Shift
Okay.
G to hide the grid. Shift G to hide the grid.
Okay.
Okay. And actually, we can now populate this. Let's populate our images. So I'm going to go File, Place Image or Video, and you can have all photos of river. I'm going to pick the
To
animal
find
photos
some.
that
You
I'm
know what I
working
might
with.
do? I might just do colors.
I might do colors.
Yeah. Okay.
Here, I'm just going to move this bird down. There we
And the
go.
way that I'm doing this, I'm just going to narrate in real time, is I am in the fill area and I'm just choosing colors.
Cool. Yeah, you're in the fill area and you're choosing colors. Perfect. And you can name the colors underneath. That'd be fun. So I'll show everybody what I just did. Once again, I'm going to go File, Place Image or Video, and I'm going to pick some photos from my computer. When I pick multiple photos, it's going to charge them up into my cursor. And if I press the spacebar key, I can drag this over and I can place them all in.
Okay,
And
I'm
I
good to
can
go. I
rename
got
that
4 shades
text.
of pink.
Dog, butterfly, squirrel, and Arctic fox. All right, cool. Brilliant. Now, the way that our gallery is going to go, we don't need a back and forth on the first one. So we're going to delete the left arrow on the first one. And at the
Okay.
last one, we don't need the right arrow on the last one. So we're just going to keep it super simple.
Okay.
Right. And once again, if you're working with students and you want them to like create a fun interactive presentation, they could do something similar. So we're going to make this full click through and we're going to preview this in a tablet device. All right, Alex, are you ready?
I think
Oh,
so.
pink cat water. Love it. Okay, so now we're going to go into prototype mode. We're going to press Shift
Okay.
E, and that's going to take us into prototype mode. When
Okay.
you are in prototype mode, things behave a little bit differently. So when I go to this triangle, I'm going to see these little plus dots around
Okay.
it. And
I see that.
what that allows me to do is drag a little noodle. We call these noodles. These are arrows. And that'll go left to right.
Okay, I got my noodle.
Yep. And it's basically going to say on tap, we're going to navigate to that frame and it's going to be instant. And that's all we care about right now. So we've created that noodle. So when we click on that arrow, it's going to go to the next one. So likewise,
Okay.
when I come over here, I'm going to click on this arrow and we're going to navigate to that previous frame. So we're creating these relationships between the slides.
Oh, okay. So when designers talk about noodles, it's basically what you want your prototype to be doing. You're giving it
Yes.
like directions. Okay.
Yep. Each noodle is an interaction. And if I was to like, let's say if I was to go back into design mode and move my frame, right? Or even if I'm moving my frame in prototyping mode, you're going to see that it's going to maintain the noodles. Like they're going to stick to one another.
Okay, Migs, can you, for folks in the chat, can you describe again how we went into prototype mode? It was Shift E.
Yep, Shift E. So
Okay.
prototype mode, you can also click on the tab in the top right. So we can, so Alex, if you want to continue adding your noodles to go
Okay.
to the next frame. So what I would recommend is go forward first. And
Hmm.
if you need to move your frames out a little bit so you can see them better, that's helpful. And then we're also going to go back. So we're just clicking, dragging, and creating those noodles. So this way the
Okay.
right arrow is going to navigate to the next frame and the back arrow is going to navigate to the previous frame. And I'm going to double click in prototype mode. We'll see this little option right here. And it's going to, for me,
Hmm.
it's called flow one. For you, it's called flow two. I'm just going to double click in there and I'm going to call it, Miggy Gallery. And when I click that play button, I'll get a little preview of a tablet and I can actually test it out and see if it works.
This is so cool. I just created my first prototype. Will you watch mine?
Yes. Dog, pink,
Yes.
cat, water, water, cat, pink, dog. Amazing. And it
Y'all, I have
works.
never built my own prototype before, so please, this is this is not scripted. This is my first prototype and it just happened live on a webinar.
That's amazing. Alex, thank you so much. You were absolutely amazing. And so, folks, right? Look, oh man, look at them cheer you on. Alex, this is going to be the first of many. You're going to make so many prototypes from here on out. So, basically, what I want y'all to think about is like, Figma demystified, right? We're creating shapes, we're creating text, we're adding in vector graphics, we're filling the shapes, text, and vector graphics with color, with imagery. We're placing them inside of frames. Those frames can be representative of a paper document or a phone or a tablet or digital device, right? You arrange, you place them in, and it could be structured or it can be kind of loose in how you place those things. Then with Figma, you can make those interactive. So the reason we have those digital frames is we can get a preview of what that might look like. What I refer to as the ergonomics of the device. So we have the frame of the device and we're able to see how that might work and how that might interact.
Okay, this is so exciting. I almost forgot to do my like normal workshop thing. So I'm about to throw in the chat a feedback form. This is the first time we've ever done a workshop with two people and especially a newbie. So please give us your feedback. We want to know if this was helpful. The other thing you can do is I'm going to drop a link to register for our next workshop, which is actually going to happen after Figma's annual conference Config, where we're going to go over all of the new features and exciting announcements that are going to happen there. So definitely sign up, get that on your calendar. Please go ahead and submit that session feedback. We'd love to know what this experience was like. And thanks for joining us today. Mickey, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Do we have any QA? No, we don't. Yeah. Is there? I'll answer one or two remaining questions. If folks had a question, what if we want to change the frame setting and already had the design? So Alejandro asked a very important question. If you want to change the frame setting, you already have the design. So over here, there was this concept of constraints. So like when you have any object that you place inside of a frame, there is this concept in Figma known as a constraint. So notice right here, you'll see constraint left and top, and you actually see this little blue line. And what that does is it instructs that object how to behave when your frame resizes. So if this object were constrained to the right and to the bottom, right? When I resize this frame, it follows the right and the bottom. If this object were constrained to the, let's say the top, and the right, right? You'll see those little lines. It's going to move to the top and to the right. So a lot of times when folks are designing, they're actually thinking about the responsiveness, how an object might move between devices. That being said, if all of your constraints are to the left and to the top, you can resize that frame. You can kind of just keep changing it, and it'll just stay in there. And it's up to you to consider how to redesign it. But you can always make a copy and then attempt it there. So in Figma, your graphics aren't precious. You can make multiple copies, multiple frames. If you have a question, try something out. Always make a duplicate and kind of go back and see what you just did. I think that was a great question, and I answered it because it covered the one concept we really didn't talk to, and that was constraints. But that being said, thank you everybody for joining today. Thank you especially to my wonderful student Alex, who made this amazing prototype.
You have
Alex's
me
first
sweating,
prototype.
Miggy. This was no joke. This was no joke. But thanks for breaking it down and for all the folks for being so kind in the chat. Again, please give us some feedback if you liked this format. Definitely let us know so it's something we can do again in the future.
Awesome.
I
Thank
think
you
I
so
just
much.
volunteered myself, which is kind of scary.
You did. This is great though. Next up, variables.
Oh my gosh, that is another session. Have a great day, everybody.
Take care, everyone.